Welcome into Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, yeah, sure, the Phillies lose to the Seattle Mariners, 5-3 ball game. Honestly, not too exciting of a ball game for either side. So what we're going to start with today is the exciting news. We have a Bryce Harper injury update, and folks, it is a big one. We'll break down what we know on today's episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. You've heard me talking baseball for years. If you're in the Philadelphia area, you can hear me on the radio, see me on the television. Oh, and yeah, this little thing called Locked On Phillies that I've been the host of now for this is my second season. Happy to be here with you as the host of that program. And we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing, doing all that good stuff to make sure that you're locked in on Locked On Phillies. So really appreciate all of that there. Now, we are going to get into a recap of last night's game. We are going to get into a preview of tonight's contest. The Phillies will take on the Seattle Mariners tonight at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can actually hear every pitch of the hometown broadcast of that one, of the Phillies hometown broadcast, on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Phillies. You can go ahead and check that out for tonight's game, just like all the games. So go ahead and do that. But where we start, because last night's game wasn't really all that interesting of one. We're going to start with the Bryce Harper injury news. And we got some big updates. First of all, I recorded it yesterday a little bit early, so my apologies. I didn't realize at the time, didn't know because it hadn't been announced yet, that the pitching rotation would be flipped for the Seattle Mariners. So Marco Gonzalez went yesterday. Logan Gilbert goes today against the Philadelphia Phillies. So my apologies if that confused anybody. I also didn't see what occurred before the game yesterday. Well, Bryce Harper was throwing. Yes, he had a baseball in his hands, and he was throwing it at Citizens Bank Park. He just had Tommy John surgery this offseason. That's ridiculous. He was also doing base running drills, and he was sliding feet first. So all of this being done before the game says, what are we really waiting on for this guy to come back? And we got that news. So according to Rob Thompson, what's going to happen is Bryce Harper is going to go, and he's going to talk to some doctor. Well, he's going to get clearance from his doctor, his elbow doctor, to slide headfirst, or try to. The expected time to meet with his doctor is right around May 1st. So the start of the first day of May or first week of May, which if I look at my handy dandy calendar here, we're looking at 5 days from where we currently stand would be May 1st, if it is indeed on May 1st. And talked to some people this morning. Talked to Ricky Batalico on the John Kincaid show this morning when he was in on 97.5 The Fanatic, and he said it live on the air. This is kind of a good to go meeting. Like, not that it's predetermined that he'll be back, but if the doctor clears him for head first slides, he's cleared to play baseball. That's how I understand it. So Bryce Harper, if he goes and he sees his doctor on May 1st, May 2nd, it could be, okay, buddy, you're good to go. We look at all the tests and everything, and you're set. It's a field thing at this point. If the Phillies are ready to put you back out there, you're good. We were initially talking about when he got not put on the 60-day injured list to start the year, Bryce Harper, that, maybe he'll be back before May 29th. How wild would that be? Because initially the thought was All-Star break. Let me tell you something, guys. The Philadelphia Phillies right now are 24 games into the season. They're 11-13. It is April. It is April 26th. It's April, right? Tell me it's April. I didn't mess it up. Yes, April 26th. I forgot what month it was for a second because he's back so soon, or he has the opportunity to be back so soon. And we're talking about Bryce Harper potentially playing baseball next week. Are you kidding me? Like, that's preposterous. Again, he has to get cleared to do a head first slide. And then I'm sure he's got to test that out by actually doing a couple head first slides. So it won't be exactly a cleared on Monday, play on Tuesday type of thing. I don't believe, but it could be clear on Monday, try things Tuesday, try things again Wednesday, check the soreness, play Thursday. He could be playing baseball next week for the Philadelphia Phillies. And how awesome would that be? And how much needed would that be for this team that's been struggling to start the year? Like, this is a season changing injury recovery. And I'm just looking at some of these tweets about Bryce Harper and the reaction from just around baseball to him potentially being ready. This is a good tweet from Cespedes Family Barbecue, and there's a deeper article here that they put up on foxsports.com if you want to check this out. But it reads the tweet: For most baseball players, Tommy John surgery is a long, emotionally draining journey. For Bryce Harper, it feels like a mere inconvenience. And then in quotes, I did have to brush my teeth left handed for a few weeks. Like, this guy isn't human. For most people, Tommy John surgery restricts them from doing anything for like 6 months. Bryce Harper, he couldn't really brush his teeth for a little bit. And then he went back and did it, and he worked it all the way back. I mean, he's been hitting for weeks now against live pitching and full velocity and everything like that. Base running. He's throwing. Are you kidding? Like, throwing? I thought he'd just be DHing and not picking up a baseball to throw this whole year. He's throwing. Could he play first base? How wild would that be if he comes back and he's playing in the field with Tommy John surgery just done a couple months ago? Like, absolutely preposterous. He is a month and change ahead of where Shohei Ohtani was when Shohei Ohtani came back to DH after getting Tommy John surgery his rookie year. I think he got it second year. Whenever Ohtani had that elbow injury, he came back in about 6 weeks longer than what, if Bryce Harper's cleared in the first week of May, than what Bryce Harper came back in. This dude's not human. He's absolutely unbelievable. I don't understand how it's physically possible that he's doing what he's doing, but Bryce Harper looks like he's getting very close to being ready to come back. And that's something that I absolutely did not think I would say in the start of May. Now, the worry from some people is that they're rushing him back. And a tough start to the year says that maybe there is a little bit of urgency from both Harper and the organization to get him out there to play. He does have to be cleared by the doctors. I have the utmost faith in the organization that they're doing what they can do to make sure he's fully cleared and fully healthy before he's ready to come back. I don't think that an 11-13 start is going to put the Phillies in a position where they say we could put Bryce Harper's rest of his year and rest of next year in jeopardy if he has to have a second time. Like, I don't think they'd take that big of a risk this early in the season, especially when he was projected to be back so much later. Like, it's not like they're behind schedule. They're way ahead of schedule. So I expect them to be cautious with Harper. And if there's any type of questions, I don't expect them to push it. But I also think that they should trust the guy. I mean, look, he played with the injury, not the post-surgery injury, but he played with the injury, a tear in his UCL, for the entirety of the playoff run last year and the second half of the season. And I don't know, guys. I don't know if you remember the playoff run. I remember him playing pretty darn well. So I have no doubts about his ability to play through it or to play well with it. There's nothing this guy isn't capable of. And I know there's a lot of great players around baseball. Shohei Ohtani's amazing. He does it pitching and hitting. Mike Trout is unbelievable. He's going to be one of the great players in the history of the game when everything's all said and done. There's some young players out there that are super exciting to watch. When you talk about Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis and Julio Rodriguez, you're seeing, like, it's just, there are a lot of great players in baseball. Aaron Judge, of course, deserves to be mentioned. The great power hitter of our time right now. Something about Bryce Harper, just, there are things he does that puts himself on a different level above all of them. And his body is just built in a way that average people, they don't recover like this. We're super lucky to have him. And hopefully the Phillies will be super lucky to have him back in the lineup next week. So you know what that means. You know what we got to do. Coming up in a later episode, we're going to have to talk about the lineup when Bryce Harper returns, because we're running out of time to do so. He's speeding up, and he's speeding up my content here on Locked On Phillies. So we will talk about that eventually. Maybe tomorrow, depending on how tonight's game goes and how interesting it is. Maybe Friday's episode, we'll go ahead and we'll work through when we're going to do it. But some point before next week, we're going to do an episode with Bryce Harper. The lineup, the suggested lineup by yours truly, when Bryce Harper comes back. So that'll be fun. But let's get into the recap of last night's game, a 5-3 victory that there were some interesting spots, even though the game itself from the outside doesn't look all that interesting. So we'll break that down next as we continue Locked On Phillies. But first, let me tell you about my friends over at So Rare. You hear me talk about So Rare. They're one of our newer sponsors, but they're a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from all 30 Major League Baseball teams. Listen, unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers, they actually own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic prizes. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next level competitions and rewards. I mean, listen to some of the rewards that are available when you win or place in these So Rare competitions. So Rare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. I mean, it's awesome. Now, obviously, prizes may vary depending on the competition. The bigger the competition, the better the prizes. But every competition comes with its prizes. They run 3 to 4 day cycles, so you can get into a couple a week. It's absolutely awesome with So Rare and basically playing fantasy baseball for all of these great prizes. So head to sorare.com/locked on. And that's spelled SO as in so, rare, RARE. So altogether, it's SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/locked on to start playing today. I also want to tell you about my friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is absolutely awesome. Got to tell you about them. They're great. They're wonderful, and they're the official sports book of Locked On. And grand slams, no hitters, double plays. They're back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. That's because right now new customers can step up to the plate with a no sweat first bet up to $1,000. Let's go to FanDuel.com/locked on. Sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. A lot of options. I don't know. Maybe take a peek at some of those Bryce Harper yearly totals. I don't know if they're even posted yet, but if they are, he's going to get a lot more time relative to what people probably thought he was. So maybe some overs on his home run totals or his doubles totals or his total hits, or maybe even look at a flyer for MVP. I mean, missing 30 games and then playing lights out for the other 132, he could certainly still win it. So go ahead and check it out. That would be a bold bet, but you can make a bold bet because I don't want you to miss your chance to get a no sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked on to sign up. FanDuel, the official partner of, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, let's jump into yesterday's game. I know that first segment was so much fun, right? And now we got to get into the Phillies lost 5-3 to the Seattle Mariners yesterday. Not as fun, but it's okay. There were some positives, and it was just one of those weird games. And they'll get another chance tonight. The Phillies take on the Mariners at 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can hear that game on the SiriusXM app. Every broadcast or every pitch of the Philadelphia Phillies home broadcast you can hear. Just go on the SXM app and type in Phillies in the search, and you'll be able to look it up. So listen to the game that way. But I had this saying about Philly sports and the Philadelphia Phillies, and you've heard me say it a couple times if you've been a long listener to the podcast, but I say good or bad, the one thing the Philadelphia Phillies never are is boring. They don't have games where they go out and they lose like 5-3, and it's just a fine game. And there's a couple home runs hit, but there was nothing crazy that happened or anything super upsetting or super out of the ordinary. It's just one of those games where you go out and the team beats you and whatever. Well, guess what? They had one of those games. I'm not going to sell this as the most exciting game ever. I'm not going to sell this the same as like a 15-14 victory by your Phillies that they win on a walk-off grand slam. No, it just, I don't know. It wasn't all that exciting of a game. Now, Bailey Falter was pretty darn good to start. Marco Gonzalez, pretty darn good to start. Unfortunately, Bailey Falter gets the loss and he moves to 0-4 this year, which is a travesty considering how well he's pitched. I mean, he had Seattle scoreless through 4 innings. Top of the fifth, though, gave up 2 runs. Jared Kelnick hit a home run, his 7th of the year, a 424-foot bomb. So absolutely mashed one to center field. J.P. Crawford had an infield single. Former Philly J.P. Crawford, former first-round pick of the Philadelphia Phillies. To score Caballero, and it was 2-0 Mariners. Then the Phillies got one back in the bottom of the inning. You know what? And that's kind of proof. We're going to talk about this real quick because the Phillies do this, and it's a really good sign. To me, one of the great signs of really good baseball teams, because I think one of the most important things about really good baseball teams, especially at the major league level, it's not just talent. Talent's super important, but it's not just talent because all these guys are talented. The worst player in Major League Baseball is a super talented baseball player. But what sets the great teams apart is they have mental toughness, they have consistency, they have the ability to do it day in and day out. And let's go back to that mentality really. They have a winning mentality. And in baseball, one of the things that shows a winning mentality, always has, always will, is the ability when the opposing team scores, do you toughen up and score in the bottom of the inning yourself or the top of the next inning? How often do you see teams when they give up 2 runs go out and get a run back, get 2 runs back, answer with 3 and take the lead back? That's the mark of a good baseball team to me. Like that, even if the record isn't there, that's one of the things that I look for to say whether or not a team is going to be successful over the course of the season. The Phillies do that a lot. They really do. When go ahead and look back at innings where the Philadelphia Phillies have given up runs, I'd say pretty even 50-50 split that they're going to get a run back in the bottom of the next inning, if not match, if not score more. So, excuse me, allergies. So I'm getting a little choked up here talking about how good the Philadelphia Phillies are at scoring after giving up runs. It brings a tear to my eye. But after giving up those 2 runs in the top of the fifth, well, then Edmundo Sosa homered in the bottom of the fifth to make it 2-1. Beautiful. Cut the lead in half. You got 4 more innings to work with. Okay, you're fine. And then in the top of the sixth, Bailey Falter hung a curveball, 75 miles an hour to Teoscar Hernandez, who absolutely hammered it to left field for a homer. I guess you could say he homered it because he hit it out of the ballpark, making it 4-1. That's much harder to come back on, especially when the offense wasn't looking that good for the Phillies. So they loaded the bases in the sixth. Alec Boehm hit a hard ground ball with the bases loaded, and somehow Ty France was just playing in the middle of the right side of the infield rather than his normal spot at first base. So I don't know if the shift needs to be banned more and that each player needs to be chained to their base. I don't know what needs to happen, but that ball should have been through the gap. It wasn't. It was right at Ty France. He makes the play to second base, saves a rally, and then Mundo Sosa strikes out the next at bat, and they get out of it. So a missed opportunity there. It was 4-2. Caballero, who scored earlier on the J.P. Crawford infield single, he had a sacrifice fly in the seventh, scoring Cal Raleigh. And Jake Cave had a nice RBI single in the ninth after Alec Boehm hit one off the wall, but just not really enough at 5-3 final. There's no one really to point to as like why they lost this game. I don't know. They had an opportunity with the bases loaded, they being the Phillies, in the bottom of the sixth. Alec Boehm hit a ball hard. There happened to be a guy playing where guys never play. It's unlucky. I'm not blaming Boehm there for not being a clutch hitter. That ball should have gotten through. Edmundo Sosa hit a home run earlier in the game, struck out with runners on first and third with 2 outs in that inning. I don't know. It's not like he did that consistently during the game. It's not like the Phillies did that consistently during the game. It was just one of those games where, for whatever reason, can't scrape across a couple runs. Marco Gonzalez was pretty good. The Seattle Mariners bullpen looked solid. That's it. You move on. Now, you got an opportunity later on tonight, and this is why, of course, you play series, and you get an opportunity with Taijuan Walker facing off against Logan Gilbert. We thought we were seeing Gilbert last night. See Gilbert tonight. Walker's been pretty good this year. We'll talk more about the preview of that game. But, yeah, plenty of time to bounce back. You can still certainly win this series. I mean, Walker tonight, and then tomorrow in a day game, a 105 start, you got Matt Strahm, but also a situation where you're not facing too great of a pitcher on the other side in George Kirby. So winnable games the next two. Phillies can still win the series. They win the next two. They've won 5 of their last 6 games. They've won 4 straight series. They're fine. Just tonight's a bigger game. So hopefully Taijuan Walker goes out there and dominates. And we'll preview that game coming up as we wrap up this episode of Locked On Phillies. But I want to tell you about Ultimate Baseball GM. Ultimate Baseball GM is awesome. Pro Baseball GM is the coolest game I've played in a long time. I'll tell you about it all the time, how I've always thought that I could be a great Major League GM. Well, as it turns out, it's really not all that easy, all right? If you've had the same thought and fantasized about managing your own franchise, go and download Pro Baseball GM immediately. The game allows you to manage every strategic aspect of a franchise, playing through seasons and setting lineups and all this stuff. You got to sign players. You got to draft players. You got to re-sign players. You got to release players. You got to sign a manager, coaches, sponsors, all this type of stuff that you don't even think of when you think about what your duties as a GM would be. So it's difficult to navigate, but it's a fun, challenging game, and it's run in a realistic game world. The best part, Ultimate Baseball GM, completely free, playable offline, so you can play on the go as you want to and when you want to. So that's great. So go ahead and check out Ultimate Baseball GM. And Locked On Phillies listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. Okay, as we wrap up, let's go ahead and preview tonight's matchup between the Mariners and Phillies. I'll tell you one more time, 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out that SiriusXM app. You can hear every pitch of the Philadelphia Phillies hometown broadcast as they take on the Mariners. Just go to the SXM app, type in Phillies in the search bar. It'll go ahead and pull it up for you. So go ahead and check our friends out over there at Sirius. We'll just run through the numbers here. 52.5% chance for the Phillies to win, according to ESPN Analytics. So Phillies are favored in this one. Taijuan Walker takes on Logan Gilbert. Walker's 2-1 to start the year. Gilbert's 1-1. Walker's ERA 3.80. Gilbert's ERA 3.57. Comparable. The WHIP. Walker's is 1.31. Gilbert's 1.01. Gilbert's been better than Walker this year, but both about the same amount of innings pitched, right around 22 innings pitched. Seattle's lineup, let's start with Julio Rodriguez in center, Ty France at first base, Jared Kelenic in left field, Eugenio Suarez is going to play third, Teoscar Hernandez right field, Cal Raleigh catching, Pollock DHing, Wong second base, Crawford shortstop. That is their lineup. Let's look at the career against Taijuan Walker, and they have a whopping total of 2 hits total against Taijuan Walker. Now, not that weird because the Phillies don't play the Mariners all that often, and Walker, when he was with the Mets, wouldn't have played the Mariners all that often either. Teoscar Hernandez is 1 for 2 against him. The only issue is that one hits a home run. Not great. And we saw Teoscar go yard last night off Bailey Falter. Pollock, who's been around pretty often DHing for the Seattle Mariners, 0 for 9 career against Walker. So that's good. And Colton Wong, who's down there playing second base, 1 for 7 career with 2 strikeouts and an RBI. So not really anyone to be super afraid of. Beware of Teoscar Hernandez. Beware of Jared Kelenic, who I said yesterday is the guy to avoid in this lineup. And, of course, he goes ahead and demolishes the Phillies last night. But he's been doing that all year long. He's been really good. His 7th home run, I think, had like his, 18th RBI or something crazy. Dude's good. So avoid Kelenic. But Taijuan Walker, not a lot of familiarity with him in this other lineup, and the Seattle lineup, so that's fine. The Phillies lineup tonight. Stott play second base, Turner at shortstop. Schwarber batting third, playing left. Castellanos batting cleanup, designated hitting. Brandon Marsh in center, batting 5th. JT Realmuto batting 6th and catching. Alec Boehm batting 7th, playing first base, which means you got Edmundo Sosa playing third base. He's batting 9th, and right in between those two, batting 8th, is Jake Cave in right field. Their career versus Logan Gilbert. Stott's 0 for 2. Saw him last year when the Philadelphia Phillies played the Mariners. Schwarber's 0 for 6. Seen him a couple of times. Castellanos 0 for 2. Brandon Marsh 1 for 10. He's seen him when he was with the Angels a couple times. And Alec Boehm 2 for 3, batting .667. Not a lot of success so far for those guys against Gilbert, and he's been pretty good. So when I'm looking at that and I'm thinking about how the game may go tonight, it's nice weather, a little bit warmer than it was last night, a little bit clearer air. Maybe the wind will be pushing out. So I hesitate to totally put money on this, but if I had to guess, I'd go under on the run total. I'd guess it would be a little bit lower scoring of a game, similar to the 5-3 contest that happened last night. We'll go ahead and see how that plays out. So that's your setup for the Philadelphia Phillies and the Seattle Mariners tonight, 6:40 p.m. Eastern. Hopefully the Phillies can go get a win and put themselves in position to win a series tomorrow with Matt Strahm on the mound. But another good opportunity. And hey, for better or for worse, whatever happens these next couple games, remember what we talked about in the opener. Bryce Harper is right around the corner. He's right there. Oh, my goodness. It's going to be huge to have him back. So you have that as a positive thought to help the Philadelphia Phillies through this rough start to the season. That's all for today's Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about tonight's game, preview the final game of the series. And, we'll get a little bit more into that Bryce Harper discussion as well. So you're not going to want to miss it. Make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to Locked On Phillies so you're completely locked in and you get all those notifications on when stuff's being posted. Doesn't cost you a thing. Takes like 2 seconds. It's one click of a button. So it helps me out significantly. So please make sure you're subscribing if you do enjoy our content here on Locked On Phillies. And I'll talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.